So it's officially 9:30 a.m. EST. Hi guys, welcome in. So Kai, welcome in. Thanks so much. You are officially my first guest on ESS payment call.
Thank you for having me.
So we actually met in Budapest. I don't know, guys, if you were in Budapest for the ESS summit, but that's where Kai and I met and we became fast friends. But I really gravitated just your story. You're also military like me. You were Marines, which is amazing. Although I was Army. So, but yeah, so it was really cool. I think what I gravitated to most was that, especially in the e-com industry, a lot of people speak about, all their successes, how much they're making, but you really weren't shy about and transparent about that. Yes, you're successful now, but where you started wasn't kind of like that story. So I really love that. And I think that's where we'll start off today of where was the first step where you said, okay, that's where I failed. Although I don't see anything as failure because all my successes come from failures, mistakes. So where was your first step where you said, that's where I failed, but this is where I'm going to go now to really start a brand?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, thanks so much for having me on again. And then also, good morning, everyone in the call. Yeah, no, definitely. There's a ton of ups and downs. I think what a lot of people don't understand, and like somebody like myself, I'm obviously an entrepreneur. I don't really using that term, but I am, and me and all my friends are. But it's such a roller coaster going through like all building the business. It goes up, it crashes, it goes up again, and you kind of just you turn into a delusional optimist. Like you'll get put into a position where it's like anyone else in that position will probably be freaking out. For me and my friends, it's just like, oh no, this is fine. This has happened before. Like we can get ourselves out of it. So I mean, it kind of started when I was in military school, the Merchant Marine Academy up in New York. And I was like, just a broke college student. And then I was home for 3 days earlier before Christmas break ended. So I was just watching movies, waiting for school to start, like watching YouTube. And I saw an ad on YouTube that said like, make 6 figures a month with no money down. And I was like, all right, this has got to be a scam. But I clicked on it, and then that's when it introduced me to the term drop shipping. And I just did more research that night, and that was like my eureka moment. I was like, screw 9 to 5. I want to be my own boss. I want to be rich. The next couple months, it was just a lot of just like literally just YouTube videos, following people. And my first store was literally, it was like the worst jewelry store you've probably ever seen in your life. It was so bad. And I didn't realize this at the time. I thought this was just like the normal thing to do. And super
Yeah.
basic thing. And it was just like for literally like probably 5 months, it was just a struggle of me spending money I didn't have. I was literally just paying like these micro influencers on Instagram. And when I say micro, I'm talking about meme pages with like 100 followers. I was paying them like $2 for a post or something like that. And
Yeah.
I remember getting my first visitor on my store though. Like I was on my store and I made a post and I saw like one live visitor and I started freaking out. I was like, dude, holy shit. Like I actually have one person on my website. And eventually, a lot of trial and error over like 5 months. And I was really distraught. Oh, probably fourth or fifth month. I was like, I don't know if it's gonna work. I'm not making any money. But I just kept seeing like all these other people doing it. I'm like, okay, look, I'm a smart kid in a pretty prestigious college. If they can do it, I can do it. So I just kept persisting. And honestly, consistency was the only thing that saved me. Eventually, I found a winning product, and my first like brand kind of turned into it started off as like a fitness brand. And I took products from AliExpress that I thought were like knockoffs from that another brand took. Like it was called like Alpha Wear or something. It was like a real big fitness brand, but back then I thought that these big companies took from the AliExpress companies. So I ran that up, and really I was selling knockoffs from a really big company for like a third of the cost. And I was posting on fitness pages, and that was kind of when I started making money. I was doing like $5,000 to $2,000 a day in class, and I was just like, okay, this is sick. And then it kind of turned into like Chubbies, like the sweets.
Yeah.
So then I
Yes.
started selling, and then I kind of turned that into like it kind of just transitioned into like this Chubbies brand. And then I was just advertising with college pages, and it was going crazy. I was doing like a buy two get three offer. I did probably 30, $40,000 on that in like 2 months. And for me in college, this is 6 months after I got into it. I was like, dude, this is crazy. Like, I can't believe this is working. And then I had to go, my school, I had to go to like sea and stuff, like on a ship for the Navy for like a whole year, just like a requirement. So I couldn't run
Right.
so in the meantime, I had sold it actually. I sold that company to for $8,000 to some Canadian guy, and then I pretty much just studied e-commerce the entire time I was out at sea. And then I got back, and then that's when I went to my first conference in Las Vegas in 2019. And then I met my mentors there. They taught me how to run Facebook ads. And then eventually they helped me start my first actual paid ad store. And then from that point on, I kind of just took over it and then branded it into like my largest company. And then, yeah, I did like 4.5 million on it in college, and then I sold it. And then, yeah, the rest is history. I've just been doing e-commerce, mainly health and wellness stuff nowadays with subscriptions
Mhm.
for the most part. And I'm also been this entire year I've been building an AI SaaS app as well for the Shopify app store. So it's kind of turned into like I become a jack of all trades. I have all this experience, the past couple of years. And then after selling my last company, I was like, okay, SaaS seems like the way to make multiple, like 8 figures off of an exit. That's like my goal, because D2C is fun and stuff, and I still do it for cash flow. But like I'm kind of transitioning into, going into SaaS and becoming like not a tech founder. Like there's this funny quote going around money Twitter. It's like, you either die or you either die an ecom guru or live long enough to become a SaaS person. So it's like a
Yeah.
lot of these SaaS guys
I've
go,
heard that one.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a pretty much a breakdown of like kind of like my story over the past couple of years. And yeah, I've got, COVID and stuff was like awful. Like, trust me, I've been through like hell and back multiple times, but just part of the process. And then I got into like payment processing probably in 2021. I started doing a lot. I
Mhm.
started getting into like the payment processing game because I started doing a lot of high risk models. Third party private payment processing is like absolutely necessary for that. So I kind of got into that, and I'm still doing that right now as well.
Yeah. What I see from a lot of the merchants that come to us, they are in high risk space. Before anyone could get into clothing and, hop on Stripe, PayPal, Shopify. But now we see clothing, just being in the clothing niche is immediately high risk because it says you're a drop shipper. But what I saw, what I kind of realized is a few topics that you touched on. So first is the one of kind of the starting point into drop shipping, because we have a lot of people who don't even have what they want to sell yet. And they always ask me, should I start white label? Should I just wait, save the money and start there? Or should I just maybe find a product that I see online that I can scale? And so that's kind of what you did, although you didn't know you were knocking off another company, which it's easy to do, especially with AliExpress. And then you mentioned studying. And then the last point you mentioned was having a mentor. So if you're going to do all of this over again and kind of give them a tip of just where to start that would lead in the right direction, would you suggest saving up some money and doing white label? Or would you kind of tell them to maybe look at the data and see what's online if that is selling properly, that maybe, okay, right now you're knocking off per se as drop shipping and then scale? And then would it be best to get into a mentorship?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. So there's only two ways to go about this. If you have enough capital to start a brand, then you can do that. And like the easiest way to do that is going to be today is TikTok Shop, because you can get affiliates to post about your brand immediately, like right away. And it's like very, very low startup cost. So the whole reason I do drop shipping is because it's a risk mitigation model, because like you don't have to buy inventory. You can test products that aren't necessarily proven with low cost ad spend, or even just organic videos on TikTok. Like I know people making 6 figures a month just posting organically on TikTok about their products. They make stupid videos about their products. They just post about it. That's a really easy way to get public validation on your product. And then once that starts selling, then you could go into paid ads, and you actually have like proof of concept there. So if you do have the funds to start a brand, so white label, I'm going to use health and wellness as an example, because that's what I
Yeah.
do. I work with a company that does drop ship my products. The only MOQ I have is labels. So I can spend a few $100 on labels, but then I could validate the product really easily just by sending it to people for TikTok Shop affiliates, or do some low budget test. Now, I think what a lot of people is like when they start a brand, they have to spend like, $5,000 on MOQs, $10,000 on MOQs and stuff. Yes, that's true, but you want to make sure you do your due diligence and research to find a supplier to start off with that can just either drop ship these like on a white label, and like it will be more expensive. Like for example, Suppleful is one company. You can just use them to validate your product in like the testing, and then you go to a larger company where you can buy either bulk, or find another company that maybe has a longer onboarding process, but they drop ship your products. So that's one way to go about it. And then, yeah, the other way, and like honestly, this way is also very, validated in terms of like if your back's up against the wall, you need some cash flow. is literally just looking at TikTok shop products and then throwing them on a Meta. So this has been like this has been working the strategy for the past over a year and a half now. If you go to this website called Calodata, they have a consolidation of all the TikTok data, like even more than TikTok does. It's super easy to look at, and they'll show you like all the products that are doing like millions of dollars a week, how many units they're selling. And the best part about it is that they'll literally show you all the videos, all the TikTok shop videos. So what you can do is, and most of these products, a lot of them are dropshipping products from China. And what you can do is you can make your own website, and then you can literally just take all these videos, like you can download them straight from the website. And then those are all creatives that you can use in ads. The biggest part that people struggle with is, yes, finding the right product to sell. And that is a very important aspect. But the more important aspect is like the creative part of it. There's a direct correlation with how much money you're making versus how many creatives you're testing, because there's no such thing as product saturation. Okay. Like when people say product research, yes, there's a part of picking a good product, but the more important part is like how many marketing angles are you going to be able to make off that product, and how many videos, how many static images can you make off that product? Because I can go find a product in AliExpress right now that has been sold millions of times over, but if I find a different marketing angle to market it at that no one else has, I'm going to be able to rescale that product again. So that's the biggest part that people struggle on, and it's literally just the amount of credits that you have to test. And on Calidata, for example, if you're a beginner, you can just literally look at all the products that are already validated by the public. Those are all scaling products. That just gives you an idea of what a winning product looks like. And then also you can literally just download, like 40, 50 videos and then throw them all into a CBO campaign on Facebook and literally just start scaling the product like instantaneously. Like I'm not even kidding. That's like been my strategy for most of the year. And then once I find a winning product, then I'll get custom content. Then I'll send it to like other influencers, affiliates, and then I'll start building a brand around it. But I'll use that and mass test these products to find a winning product and validate it on Meta. And then I'll go into like moving into branding it and then customizing it and all that.
I love that.
Yeah,
It's
that's
interesting to me because I started out in the industry here in payments, but before I got into payments and I was just in tech sales, I had guy friends that were strictly e-com and they would just test this on Amazon. And it was during COVID. So that was like, I feel like the wild west of what they were searching. And so it's interesting how far it's come that you actually have these sites that do it for you. So yeah, guys, I would use this. When we're talking about ads, what would you say has been your biggest hit? Like what ad have you seen like the most in conversions to your site and for repeat customers?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's several types of ads. I would say, well, my biggest one, so for my biggest company, it was a wall tapestry company. So like, a bunch of psychedelic wall tapestries. I also sold jewelry and clothing on that. I did six figures on all the collections I had on my on that, but the main seller was tapestry. So what I did was I just made my ads like super engaging. The way I did that was a lot of movements. I increased the saturation to make the colors pop a lot more. And then all the songs that I put over my videos, I would change the scenes of the ad at each beat. So like for me, I was like, oh, okay, like psychologically, like subconsciously, like the viewer is getting hooked onto this because like the visuals are changing with the beat. So that was just like one thing that I integrated into my ads that I thought helped them do really, really well. But for some other ones that have worked really well too are just like comparison ads, like why we're better than the competitors, and you just list off like why you're better. And also a lot of people just skip static image creatives though. Like static images, I don't know why there's a stigma around this. People always think videos do better than static images. It's like completely wrong. Like static images can do just as good as videos or even better. Like I've had static image ads that pushed six figures and spent through my ad account. The same thing with videos. Don't sleep on static images. There's another website. Here, I'll drop some more sauce. Like there's this website called Creative OS, and these guys have literally thousands of templates for static images that all the biggest companies use. So what you can do is like you can literally copy and paste these into Canva and then throw in your product mockups into there and change up the copy. So this is how I'm able to like pump out like hundreds of creatives a week for the brands, because I already have these templates and I don't have to go through a creative director thinking about, oh, what can I use? This is like I already have all of it here. For mass testing, again, this is like the best thing you can do. Once you're up to once you get up to cash flow, you can hire a creative director, actually hire an in-house team to like make everything custom. But to start off, just using this stuff, the templates is perfectly fine to give you just ideas on like what to scale. But you never really, the funny thing is there's like templates for like good ads per se, but you honestly never really
Right.
know. what ad is going to work really well until you test it. So that's why I'm really big about just like testing every angle possible. There's so many people out there on using these platforms that like even the color of like the background of your static image can go to a whole set of different people that will resonate with it. So it's really important to make sure you're
Yeah,
testing like everything.
absolutely. And a lot of the guys that we have, especially in ESS, they're going to be more in the startup phase. We have a few that are scaling and established, but for the financial side of this, when we're talking about the ad spend, just let's say they're a startup just come into this arena. If you would start over, how much would you put into ad spend each month?
Yeah,
And
definitely.
not
So
talking about scaling and established.
back then used to be just a few $100. That's why there was like this American dream of drop shipping, because like on the ad platforms back in 2018, 2019, there was way less advertisers, and like everyone's ads were drastically cheaper. Like you could literally throw up like toilet paper and it would scale. Like it was crazy. But nowadays, I will say, like, I'm gonna be very, very honest here. Like you're gonna need at least probably $3,000 or $4,000 like first month testing. Like that's gonna be bare minimum, because like if I do $100 per product test. So let's say you have a product, you have your landing page done already. You're going to need to test that product for like at least 2 to 3 days before you can make a decision whether or not to cut it. And I set my budgets at $100 a day. And on Facebook, it's like the budget that you're putting into Facebook, just think of it as just time. Like the less budget you put in, it's going to take much longer to get results. So you can literally just speed up the process by adding more money in. For example, like you can do $300 a day and figure out day one. But the thing is, Facebook does need a little bit of time to learn. So the sweet spot is probably I just do $100 a day, let it run for 2 to 3 days. And then after the third day, I'll look at the data. Did this get any purchases? Did this get any added carts? Am I break even? If you're break even, then that means Facebook is continuing to learn who your audience is. And if you got purchases, that's a good sign. So just let it keep running for another couple days, and then Facebook will optimize better and better and better. And eventually that will turn into like a scaling ad. So that's why it's very important to make sure you're not cutting stuff really fast, but also you're being, conservative with your funds and not just like letting it rip. So you just have to check it like every day. But I would say definitely $3,000 to $4,000 just in like product testing monthly is like probably the minimum you would need.
Yeah. I would say for us, our service is a little bit different. We're not drop shipping, but who we're marketing to, and we're already seeing like we're spending 2,500 a month right now on ad spend. Completely agree there. Well, let's move over to the financial side of this. So a lot of the ecom guys will come to us for payment holds. And we see a lot of liquidity issues of they started the brand, it was scaling to like 50 to 100,000 monthly, and now they have a payment hold and everything is frozen. I'm sure when you feel that first business, there were some financial issues there. How would you say where they should start their, should they go to a bank to get a loan? Should they move over to start another business to pour liquidity back into the one that has, I guess, paused after they released the hold with us? What would you say would be your next step for the financial recovery side of a brand?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think just first steps in mitigating going into that situation is to make sure that you have a good relationship with your banks and your payment processor. And you're not using PayPal or Stripe. Like they will always hold your money. It sucks. And also just making sure that, your chargebacks and like just making sure your model works. But obviously, things happen. Like it happened to me as well. Like I've had 6 figures held by PayPal. I've had 6 figures held by Shopify payments and just third-party processors as well. But getting back is, yeah, that's honestly a very challenging part for especially beginners, because like it's like it ruins their experience like getting into this. Like it's a nightmare. Like it really ruined mine. Like I had like 150K held by PayPal for like 180 days. I couldn't really sell anything anymore, because like that was where all my cash flow was. I personally didn't take out any loans. I did request for Chase, my current bank that I work with, to increase my credit card limits to like drastically, because like I had a bunch of money held up. I was like, okay, let's see if I can get credit card limits raised. That's like first step. That was like probably the easiest thing, honestly. I got my limits raised, and then I just started like another store, and then kind of just scaled that one up, and then kind of had the other one on pause. So that's what I did personally. I know some other people, they have like you can't get loans like based off like the volume that you've been doing. I personally haven't used any funding like that. I did take out, like, honestly, I mean, during COVID, I lost probably $300,000 just in refunds and chargebacks, because like my warehouse like closed down for COVID, so I couldn't ship anything out. So I took out like the COVID loans. Like that's what I did to honestly stay afloat. It was like really bad. It was for like 3 months. I was just like screwed. But I took out like COVID loans, and then I started off like just like other smaller drop shipping stores just to kind of stay afloat. And that's kind of like that
Mhm.
was like my experience. That's kind of like what I did. But yeah, I mean, I'd say just mitigating those reserves in the first place, like just making sure that your 3PL, your logistics systems are all in place. Because like I think the biggest part that people mess up on, they sell too much that they can't ship out. Like they go into a scale like that. That's honestly what I've seen the most is like people go into a scale with a product, and then all of a sudden the supplier can't make it anymore. They can't ship it out. Just be wary, especially when you start seeing success with the product, to make sure that your current supplier is able to scale with you and that they won't run out of inventory. That's a huge mistake, honestly, a lot of people make. You have to have a trust with your supplier. Like for most of your people getting the drop shipping, like you can get private agents that source in China and stuff. Zendrop, they have like agents and stuff like that as well that they can get you connected with. That's who I use. If I do find stuff from China that I want to source, I'll just use like a private agent to make sure that they talk to them, they negotiate with them, and then they'll make sure that, hey, we actually have inventory to scale with you and we can ship these out to people.
Absolutely. And it's great that you mentioned that having a supplier that you trust. When we're seeing merchants with holds and or excessive chargebacks. So you have the excessive chargebacks, you're getting kicked off of like let's just say Klarna and Stripe, PayPal, and now you are having the excessive holds for 180 days, even longer. We're seeing it just starting from right, like as Kai said, the scaling too fast and not having the product, or you're having the product not as described, right? So we're getting chargebacks for that. And that's letting me know a lot of merchants, like you're finding the product, but we're not testing it. And so this is also what I tell my clients as well. Like you actually have to get the physical product. And Kai, I don't know if you do this anymore now, but having the physical product, testing it yourself, making sure it works. And then, mass producing that. And then the last part is multiple payment processors. This is something I always mention is to mitigate if you do get a hold, having that backup payment processor, even an orchestration platform, and we can go into that later. But when you first started, did you have multiple payment processors, Kai, or is that what you're doing now to kind of mitigate any holds or risks?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, yeah, that's not something I didn't even know you could have multiple payment processors until like 2020, 2021. Because I was doing mainly all like very low risk, just like straight sales stuff, super white hat. And then I got into the high risk stuff and I was like, oh, you can have like multiple payment processors and like put them in a round robin and like spread all the funds across each one. And it made a lot of sense to me because I was like, oh, that's going to mitigate a lot of risk and chargebacks and all that stuff. So yeah, now for my high risk model businesses, yeah, I'll have like 10 to 15 mids like in a rotation. But we still try to like even then it's like just still important to make sure that you're actually shipping out the right product, like you said. You have to keep a really good relationship with these banks because they will punish you. Like I'm currently dealing with some holds right now actually because like stuff always goes up in flames in the business that you just don't have control over. So you just kind of got to deal with it. But thankfully I have like multiple backups so I can like continue scaling.
Yeah. It's a huge benefit to have these multiple payment processors. And obviously, when you're having multiple PSPs, you're going to run into a few risks, right? You're going to have like the increased complexity of it. So, like having the multiple relationships, any technical integration or data mismanagement, right? But that's kind of where we come into the payment orchestration, where it's going to combine all of these together. So, you'll have that payment processor, let's just say PayPal, which I don't recommend, but let's just say PayPal on a basic level, and then you'll have the buy now, pay laters and different buy now, pay laters depending on your region where you're selling. And it's really beneficial because now you have all of these payment options, credit cards, etc. And it's going to route, right? It's going to route to the correct one. So that's going to alleviate failed transactions, especially if you're selling in multiple regions, like I'm sure Kai is, if you're selling globally. So, but we'll get later into payment orchestration if you want to as well. So the next part I wanted to go into was the correct or what you would say is the right PSP for someone's region. This is something that I get all the time, and I have to kind of answer it, which is an answer no one really likes, but it just depends. So it depends on your vertical, right? What you're selling, and then also depends on your region. But what are you seeing as the best payment processor as far as the top five, like US, UK, EU, Australia, Canada, right? What would you say is the best payment processor to start out with if they can move away from the basics of like Stripe and PayPal?
Mainly, so all my third party ones that I use, I mainly sell to the US. So my high risk models are just US based because it's mainly health and wellness supplements. So I just sell to the US. I manufacture them here. But honestly, the ones that I've really liked that I have good relationships with is Bankcard, CMS, EMS, there's Synovus, Nativia, Maverick. A lot of those ones I've had really good relationships with. And then there's some other banks that are more lenient, but they have more restrictions. For example, Quantum requires they give you like super high starting caps. Like they'll give you like multiple different mids at like 100,000 each. They're one of the only ones though that requires like a CVV for each time that you charge someone's card. So you have to make sure that you have a CVV option in your checkout. And if you have subscriptions, they have to be put on to that same mid. So for example, what we were just talking about earlier, if you have multiple mids in rotation, let's say I have 10 different mids, half of them are quantum. And then I have people subscribing for a product, like a monthly recurring product. I can't move over any of the people that initially charged in quantum or initially charged on the other non-quantum ones over to quantum because it'll decline it because it doesn't have a CVV. So there's definitely a lot for certain people. Like if you're more like white hat and low risk, like quantum's a great one because they give you super high limits, which is what you want because another annoying thing sometimes is you get these private payment processors and a lot of them have like caps. It's going to depend on like what your current bank statements are, how much money you have in the bank, what your previous processing history is, and they can give you much higher limits. But I would say for most people, they're going to give you like a couple 100,000. And once you find a scaling product and you blow past that cap, they stop processing for you. So you have to keep that in mind. So it is good to try to get high caps. Like when you're going for private, you want the highest caps possible. So Quantum is really good for that. If you're in high risk, like I was saying, like Bankcard, Maverick, Nativia, Merrick, those are some ones I've had some good relationships with. So
Yeah, you're definitely giving us some key nuggets. If you guys are keeping notes on this, perfect. We
Glacier
have
is
30
also
more.
really good too. Glacier. Yeah,
Yeah,
Glacier.
absolutely. So I'm gonna go over to scaling challenges. The merchants that I have, they want to start in the US and then go global immediately. I don't recommend that, right? You're gonna get more failed transactions that way and more held accounts, but where would you see more scaling challenges in the beginning? Then let's now move into you've already scaled the business. Now you're already doing six figures monthly. You're trying to hit that million. If someone is in that area now, they're scaling business. How would you say to mitigate scaling challenges? What would you put in place, whether it's a team, you have your financials done, right? How would you say, okay, this is the proper way now to scale?
Yeah, definitely. Great question. So if you're already at $100,000 a month in revenue, then it's so much easier to go from 100,000 to a million a month rather from like 0 to 100K. So some of the stuff that helped me start scaling to higher six figure months, like I've had close to $1 million a month before. I've done like 850,000 in a month before. But my highest consistent scales have been around 400,000 to like 600,000 a month, just consistently over the months. And even to get to that point, it's like you want to focus on scaling in the US first because you can't everyone can get to $1 million a month in the US. If you can't, then it's not really worth trying to test in other countries. So like once you get to like the closer to a million a month in the US, then you can start expanding to like all these the big five, UK, Canada, Australia, New Zealand. But before then, the biggest part is just going to be creatives. Again, guys, I promise you, the only thing holding you back from scaling higher is just the amount of creatives that you're pumping out. This is like people always ask, like, I can't get my product to scale, I can't get my product to scale. It's like, how many creatives are you testing? They'll say, like, oh, I'm testing like 2 or 3 a week. It's like nothing. You're not going to get anywhere with that. So I'd say internal team, know how to build out your own creatives first, and then you could hire a VA, make some simple SOPs, and have like 1 or 2 people just making you consistent creatives weekly. That's really going to be able to, and once you start testing and scaling and throwing those in the ads, your revenue will increase. You'll see that lift, and then you can kind of just work from there. So I would say, so you're doing $100,000 a month already. Like the only thing you need to do is just pump out more creatives and increase your ad budgets at that point. If your supplier is able to have unlimited scale, then like that's the way to go. It's just going to be literally just increasing ad budgets and testing more ads. Again, I'm harping on this because like it's literally the biggest thing that I see. And even I was at an event yesterday, and Alex Fedotov was actually saying the exact same thing. You need to be testing at least like 50 creatives a week. He spends 10, 20 million a year. He literally said the only thing that allows him to do that is to have mass creative output. So that's like super important to make sure you're testing as many angles as possible. I mean, there's angles that for your product, like if you're scaling a product, I promise you there's angles that are out there that you would never even have thought of that a lot of people are dealing with. So like what I do to help out with that is to use like ChatGPT or Grok on X. I'll ask them, for example, my prompts will be like, come up with the most psychologically triggering marketing headlines for my product. And then it'll come up with like 10, 20 headlines that you could have never even thought of, and ask it to come up with different angles. Like honestly, really use this AI stuff to your advantage, because like it does help me to think about things that I never would have thought of. And then I'll just use those in my ads. And then, and then I'm scaling again. So I think that's probably the easiest lever to pull to get higher scale is just more creative output. Got to hire a team, but that's like your number one thing. Other than that, I would just say like helping conversion rates on your landing pages, maybe getting a custom page builder. I highly recommend that to make it like a D2C CRO optimized landing page. Get a custom page builder. You lift your conversion rate by even 1%, you're making like even from 2% to 4%, you're literally making double the money. All you did was increase the conversion rate. You didn't change anything about your ads, you didn't change anything about your budgets, but you're making double the money by doubling your conversion rate. So let's keep that in mind as well. Conversion rates are really important, especially when the unit economics, once you get up to even 6 figures a month, are really important. So make sure, yeah, every little tiny thing helps. Even if you raise your conversion rate by even 0.5%, over the long run, you're going to make way, way more money over the course of a couple months just by raising your conversion rate. So that's like also another thing to help you to get the scale. And then I say some other basic levels or levers to pull would just be like your offers. Get your AOV up, bundle stuff together, add in some cheap products as upsells. Even just getting your AOV up just even by 10 or $20, that gives you just so much more money to scale, right? So work on your AOV as well.
That's key. And that's another question I get a lot is creatives. So you just answered your question. You want to do at least 50, if not more, creatives a week. And that's coming also from Alex Fedotov. So that answers your question. When we're talking about prompts, what would you say is what's been the last prompt you use? Let's just say in your last product that you launched or last week, or what's been a really successful prompt you've seen?
Yeah, I mean I mainly use like the prompting just for headlines and stuff. But yeah, like I said, I usually like to use like, because I got mentored or I got taught by this one guy that runs like a like 8 figure a year agency in Dubai specifically for copywriting, like copywriting only. Like this guy's crazy. Like he'll just make like these crazy sales letters, VSLs, and he only does copywriting for these huge guys. And he told me that there's certain words that are psychological trigger words, like flood, for example. Like we're gonna flood your team with sales, like something like that. Or flood your brand with sales. That's like a psychological trigger word that people will read, and it'll like make them think, be like, oh wow, like because like it does something to them when they're reading it. So I asked ChatGPT to like come up with like psychologically triggering headlines and also the emotional aspect. And I really harp, I tell it to make it, I'll keep telling it to make it more and more emotional. Like I'll have it come up with the first 10 and I'll be like, make it more emotional. And then come up with another 10 and then I'll be like, make it even more emotional. Because like people buy off emotions, if you're selling a dress, you're not really selling a dress, you're selling confidence, you're selling beauty. So people buy off emotions. So really make sure that your headlines are like super emotional, like be aggressive with it. If you're not breaking any, like if you're not talking about like if you're not getting too sexual with your headlines, like Facebook, you can get pretty aggressive with like your headlines on Facebook, especially if they're not going down like the sexual route too much. You can get super emotional with your headlines, and yeah, just use ChatGPT like to come up with those. But just like I'd say the short headlines or even the ad copy, you can use ChatGPT to come up with like Facebook ad copy. Really try to force the AI to make it as emotional as possible. It's come up with some crazy stuff. Like for example, I'm launching this like dog food or this pet food company, like CBD pet treats with my friend. And it was just like one of the headlines that Grok came up with. I actually like Grok a lot. Grok's like not woke per se. Like you can make Grok like say a lot more crazier stuff than OpenAI can, ChatGPT. So I used Grok, and Grok was like, it says something like your pet is suffering and you're just standing there letting it happen, because the CBD patches are like for anxiety, right? So like the anxiety angle was like your pet is scared all the time and you're letting it happen. Buy our pet treats or like something like that. So like it was like really harping on like the pet owners being terrible pet owners, even though they're probably not, but like the market, that's what marketing is. It makes you feel a certain way to make you want to buy this stuff. So that was like an idea I didn't even have. Like I was just like, oh yeah, let's make the pet owners feel like crap about not giving their pets this product. And then yeah, so that's just like one aspect I think is really important. Like also getting like ideas and stuff like that for just headlines is like I use Grok because like it's not really that woke, but you can use OpenAI too.
Yeah, we love ChatGPT. Honestly, ChatGPT itself has helped us grow our company globally in just a year. So definitely use that, makes your life a lot easier. But I just put in the Grok link so you guys have that. Um, well, let's move over to how you're spending your time, your day for your energy. Um, when you're scaling a business, right? Everything is going to be about the company work, but at the end of the day, it's when you're coming home, how you're spending your time. Are you reading? Are you meditating? Are you spending time with family, friends? Like, what are you doing on the back end to pour that energy into your business to scale?
Yeah, I mean, over the years, like when I first started, you're a jack of all trades. Like you're doing everything from customer service to running the ads, finding the products, like literally everything. So when I first got started into this, I just had to sacrifice like my social life, and I just knew that I had to. And I just poured most of my energy, and this is when I was like in school too. So I was like doing school on top of this. I literally just like honed down. Like I didn't, I honestly, I skipped out on so many weekends out in the city parties and all that, and I kind of just honed in and like I just knew what I had to do. And eventually I learned how to delegate. So like delegation is like honestly probably the most important thing I ever learned. And it's like the hardest for people to get um a grasp of, because like you're like, oh, I don't want anyone else doing this in my business. Like I'm the best at this, I'm the best at that. When really it's like, no, you can delegate out your customer service, you can delegate out your creative team, you can even delegate out ads, because like it was so weird for me. I never wanted to do it. And then as soon as I started delegating, I just had so much more free time to actually work on more important parts of my business. So I think that's really important to make sure that you're using, like, you don't get honestly too caught up in your own business and worry about the energy you're putting in. Like even though that you have to pay someone else to do it and you might take a small profit hit, like I promise you, like it just frees you up so much and you have way less stress. You can focus on a lot more important parts of your business and actually scaling it higher. Because like the goal is to work on your business, not in your business. Like, but of course, when you're first getting started, like you're working in your business, like that's the whole process. But eventually pull yourself out so you have a lot more time. Nowadays, I have a lot of stuff delegated. So I honestly have a lot of free time, but also it's like I'm always technically working. I'm always like texting people about things and stuff like that. But for the most part, I have a really solid group of friends down here in Fort Lauderdale. We all live on the same road in different buildings. So we're honestly all hanging out. We see each other every single day for the most part. I'm in Florida, so we hit the beach. Like I was just at the beach with my friends last night playing volleyball, and then we went to like a retro diner. So honestly, just like it's fun because like I have a ton of freedom to do like a lot of healthy things. And I'm very avid in the gym as well. But for specific for business, like I'll obviously like a couple times a week I'll go into deep work for a couple hours, maybe just like 2 or 3 hours. I have to knock some stuff out. It becomes a lot easier when you only have to do that a couple, like maybe even once or twice a week. I probably work a couple hours a week, but I'll do like really deep sessions and just like knock out a bunch of stuff. And that's something that like a lot of people do. Some people like spread out their work throughout the day. Me personally, I honestly, I'm very big into fitness. So like most of my day revolves around me just being generally healthy. Like I'll go on a walk in the morning in the sun for a half hour. I'll come back, healthy food, whatever. That's usually when I come back around like after my morning walk. Then I'll usually do like maybe an hour or two after breakfast, and I'll just knock it out. Then honestly, I get most of my work done in the morning, the first hour or two, and then I'm kind of just like free for the rest of the day. Then I can plan my gym session. If anyone wants to go to a restaurant to go grab a bite to eat, I'll do that. But honestly, a lot of it revolves around just like my just general health. And I don't want to be the person about like mental health and mindset. Like, yes, it's like super important, but that's kind of just what I do. I do focus on just making sure I'm always getting better. So I'm studying outside of business. Like since like I was saying, a lot of my stuff is delegated. And again, sometimes throughout the week there's an emergency and I have to go into work for a little bit. But for the most part, I always want to make sure I'm learning. I don't really play video games, honestly. Like I haven't played video games in the past like 6 months, to be honest. Like I did have an Xbox, but it's in storage. But I don't really even like playing video games too much. I'd rather just like read. So like I'm reading a couple books right now, startup books, because I'm starting an AI company, and then just some argument books, like some logic books, I think are super helpful. I always just want to make sure I'm moving up. Like I don't want to be just like a brain rot like person scrolling on his phone all day long. Like yes, sometimes I'll get caught into that, but for the most part, I'm like I just want to be consistently learning, especially Twitter. Like I'm actually on Twitter all the time because there's so many gems being just dropped on Twitter itself. Like there's a ton of different awesome D2C guys on there. I mean, you see everyone on Twitter, and like people are always talking about like things they're learning in their business, things that went wrong. And it's honestly better than any course you can buy. Like once you get into the right Twitter timeline and you're seeing all these different founders and other brand owners, they're telling their stories. It's actually really sick because then you can find little gems that you can pick out and learn from there as well. So I'm always on Twitter, honestly, learning a lot of stuff too.
I love that. What would you say, who are you following right now on Twitter that's been more impactful for
Yo,
your
if you
education?
if you guys want like just straight technical sauce that is better than any course you can find, you can follow this guy named Frank Gabriel, job shipper, brand owner, but he does like, 50 to 100K a day consistently. His name is Frank Gabriel. Let's see, what's his handle? Yeah, his handle is just Frank Gabriel with two K's and Frank. Super solid. You should go through him and then just like follow people that he follows, and then you'll just kind of be put into the right timelines. But yeah, I know, yeah, there's a ton of awesome people that are constantly dropping just like sauce. I'm probably telling you guys a lot of good stuff, but like there's so much more being dropped on Twitter that you will just be like, holy crap, like I didn't even know this. Like stuff you can't even find on YouTube. Like YouTube is good. It's a lot of fluff though, because people are just doing YouTube for the money. On Twitter, people are literally just being real. They're just like showing you what's going on. And yes, there's people that are like would probably try to get you to buy their course, but for the most part, there's like just a ton of generic, general gems being dropped here and there. Like, hey guys, this is what's working for me, or hey, this is how I found that product. Like, it's for beginners. And I was telling people this yesterday. People were asking me, yo, like, how do you start? How do you start? I was like, guys, just go on Twitter, follow all the D2C people. There's just so much good information on there that will honestly, like, that's probably, if I had that back then, I would be, I'd be retired by now, because like I would have made it a lot earlier, because like there's so much good stuff in there being dropped all the time. Even for me, out of all my experience, most of the stuff I see I know already. But even on Twitter, I can still find really good stuff that people like. I mean, I have friends on Twitter that, I mean, there's obviously people doing a lot better than me, like doing, 4 or 5 million a month on their drop shipping stores. And they're talking about their processes too. So there's just a lot of great information on there that even like, honestly, sometimes I'll go into Twitter and I'll do just like on my laptop, not even on my phone, and I'll take out like my notepad and literally just write down stuff that I see, and then I'll do research on them later. So like okay, I'll drop my username. Yeah, you can
Yeah, we're
follow
getting
all the
asked
people that
for
I
your X
follow too.
name.
Yeah, all the people that I follow too. Like you can just go through my following and just like follow all the D2C people, and then like just start scrolling. You'll get put in the right timeline and you'll start seeing all this awesome stuff.
So X is where it's at, guys. All right, perfect. So we're gonna open it up for quick fire Q&A.
Hello.
All right, Lane, how are you doing
Uh,
today?
Very good, very good. You?
I can hear you perfectly.
My question now is, so let's say you're building a brand in some specific niche, and then you should like test more product, yeah? So the coaches here says that you need to be focusing on a one product per, so first one product, you try to scale it. If it doesn't work, go to another. But what for you, if you've done this, like a gap, or let's say it's a sign for you, so this product I've been testing, I've been doing money with it, but you like in the time that you're doing it, you don't see the potential of scaling it no more, or the numbers tell you that this wouldn't work. So what is like the top 3 things you are focusing on while like already making money with one product to choose, okay, let's go scale this, or okay, we will drop this product. We have another one that is really good and we should try that one. If it is not doing a big minus in like your profits. That was my
So
question.
you're saying, so your current product, so let's use your product as an example. Your current product right now, you said you're making money off of it.
Yeah, so like we are doing some revenue with it, and then we are like we've come to some problems with it regarding to Facebook, and now it is not making as much money. So we in the past week we like made a minus. And my question to you is like the top 3 things that like we should be focusing on, so we don't get like too much attached to like the product that we I
Yeah.
don't know love or we are hyped about, you know?
Yeah, yeah. No, great question. Honestly, I'm really happy you said about not getting attached. That's like a huge mistake that beginners make, is that they get emotionally attached to a product, even though the numbers say something else. So like, guys,
Mm-hmm.
numbers don't lie. And like, this is like, and this is something that's like honestly an experience thing where you just learn not to get attached to products, and you just be analytical about like the data. if you're not profitable, especially over the trailing 7 days, like I'd say cut it.
7 days?
Yeah, I mean, if you're
Oh,
making
okay.
negative, if you're making negative money every single day, then it's like, oh, like, just cut it. Like,
Yeah.
but the other thing I would say is, yeah, so don't get emotionally attached to products. It's especially, even though I get it, like it was scaling before. The only thing I would say to revive it is what I was saying earlier, is to test more creatives. Like I don't know how many you're testing, or if you just wanted to relaunch with a bunch of new fresh creatives, so you could try that. If it's around break even or just slightly profitable, and I'm trying to scale it, either increasing budgets or I'm testing more creatives, and the needle's not really moving, that's just a telltale sign to cut it. Also, I don't know if you meant like a one product store or like a general store.
No, no, no. I meant like building a brand in one specific niche, so you can use multiple products in that your
Yeah.
brand.
Yeah, so what a lot of people do, starting out, they'll start a general store. So this is where you can test mass products without having to worry about branding, spending all this time branding your store. That's another big thing, is like beginners waste time on things they don't need to be wasting time on. So what I would personally do, like this is the best way to go about it, especially if you're just doing generic drop shipping, is to just have a general store, have a generic name, not too drop shipping. Like usually you can just use, like, again, Grok or ChatGPT to come up with, hey, come up with, 10 online store names that are one word. And you can ask it to like make up new words. A lot of these brands that I launched in the past that are just generic dropshipping stores are just like one word, but it's kind of a cool sounding word. Like, like Zathura or something like that. Like something weird, but it's like generic. It's like a made up word, but you can just add a bunch of products in there. So, and then the thing is, when you're drop shipping, you're sending people to the product landing page. You're not sending them to your whole website to see all your products, right? You're sending them to like one landing page, that one product landing page. And all these people are impulse buyers. So they're not really going to go browse your website for other products and be like, oh, they're selling a bunch of random stuff. They'll stay on the product, for the most part, they'll stay on the product landing page. And if they're going to buy, they're going to check out. So that way, you say you're testing like one product right now, like you should be testing like probably like 4 or 5 products a week. And the way you can do that is on a generic dropshipping store and just have custom pages for each product. And then once one hits, and then you're scaling, I would say before you make it into like a brand, scale it for at least like 2 to 3 weeks, because some products die out after a month. If you have consistent growth over 2 to 3 weeks, then you can start working on just removing the other products out and then turning that store into a brand. So that way you can skip the whole process of like spending all this time branding your store. Don't waste time doing that. You want to spend all your time testing products, validating products first. And then once you find a winning product, then go into the work of like branding around that.
Okay. So my question again is like, while testing a product, right? And you start making sales with it. So usually, how long does those creative that are selling, so let's say winner creatives, could be lasting? So what is the timeline? Is it possible so they can die out in a week, or is this 1 month, 3 month? How long, in your experience,
Yeah.
how long
So good
average?
question. So for Meta, creative fatigue isn't really a thing. I've had creatives on there for over a year scaling.
Oh, okay.
Two of my biggest creatives ever had like 18 million views on Instagram. Another one had 12 million views. I had the biggest ads on Meta back in like 2021. Like two of them. Those like top 5 ads and like on Meta. Those were like, they ran for over like a year long. So on TikTok, however, it's a completely different story. Like TikTok, creative fatigue, like a week or two. It's really bad, and you have to recycle creatives on TikTok constantly. So if you do go on TikTok, just keep that in mind, that you're gonna have to do a lot more. You have to relaunch creatives a lot more often, even the same creatives, just like re-downloading, uploading this creative, because like the creative fatigue sucks on TikTok. They die out super, super fast. Like you're gonna have a lot more creative testing on TikTok, and it's just videos. But for Facebook, like once you launch a creative and it starts scaling, like you can just scale it for like pretty much indefinitely.
Okay, if I a little bit go back to previous question. So let's say you do in a week like 1,000 euros profit of a one product, and then the product starts, so it doesn't work out that good anymore. So what is like your numbers, the point that you said, okay, we close this? So I was thinking about like if we do 1,000 euros profit, and now it's like the ad creative and the campaign is acting goofy, so we make like a minus 500 euros. So that would be for me the point that I say, okay, we did some money, we can like have 500 euros, we lost 500. So this is like the thing I want to ask you is, in regards to direct numbers, what do you think is the best way to like stop the product? Is this at 500 euros minus 300 or maybe 1000 euros minus in your opinion?
Are you saying like you're just having like a lot of volatility like in the ads daily? Like some days you're losing, some days you're making money?
Yeah. Because the thing that happened to me is like few sales a day, so let's say 5, 6 sales a day, and then I tried to like scale the whole brand, and I was making more and more creatives, and each day that I turned off new ad set with new creatives, it's like it was getting blocked, because when I turned on the new creatives, the whole campaign didn't get any sales, and I was making like a 300 euros minus per day.
It could be an ad account structure issue. Like what's your ad
Mhm.
account structure look like? Like how do you have like how many campaigns you have running per product?
So let's say for this product, we were using one campaign, and this was first the testing interest campaign, and we saw that like in the broad, it was performing the best because
Yeah.
we were running it for 2 weeks, and now the Pixel has learned everything that I believe that enough. And then we were trying to like put out new creatives, and each time that I created a new ad set in the same campaign, when I turned it on, zero sales in the day. And when I turned the new creatives off, next day the old ad set got sales. So it was this happened to me like 3 times. So I don't think this was like a coincidence.
Yeah, no, I think so. Like sometimes if you like are doing that, so what I do is like good, like have one CBO like at
Hmm.
broad. Don't ever do interest because like you're just limiting your audiences. Just do
Okay.
broad. You want to reach as many people as possible. You said only a couple sales a day. Like I wouldn't try to scale anything until I have like consistent like 10 to 20 sales a day.
Uh-huh.
The Matrix is not getting enough data. Like you want it to have enough data before you scale anything. Like sometimes you can wait like 2 weeks before you even increase budgets. It's still learning and you have to wait for it to get sales. But yeah, I mean, like I don't know what your budgets are. Sometimes Facebook is volatile, but there's also some products that are just like John X Paul on YouTube. He says it really well. There's like 3 or 4 tiers of products. There's like A-tier products that can last like all year. It's like B-tier
Mhm.
products that can last like 6 months. There's like C-tier products that can only last like a month. And sometimes that just happens. Like sometimes your product market just isn't big enough and it'll just like die out. But if you're saying you're trying to like scale and test more product or test more creatives, it's like if you only have 4 to 5 sales a day, then it's like it might be too small of a product to try to scale that up. Like I would wait until you have at least like 10, 15, 20 sales a day consistently for several days before you start adding in more creatives to test. Because like really the CBO, especially in a younger CBO, like it can be like sensitive. That's just my opinion. I haven't really had too many issues with that like on my end, but just from like what I've heard similar issues.
Okay,
The general
perfect.
store,
Thank you very much.
how do you even connect the pixel if you're selling different products? The pixel learns for a product. So you can use the same pixel. Like it's going to learn. It's just like this thing is a pixel as like a baby. Like it can pick up multiple things at once. It can learn how to play piano and it can learn how to play violin, and it can be just as good as both. So you can use the same pixel for multiple different products. If you want to segment it out, that's also fine. If you do plan on testing like maybe a lot of different products, this is mainly for collection pages, in my opinion. I would use a different pixel for a collection page because the collection pages have like 20, 30 different products. And if I'm able to have the pixels separately, then I would. But if you're just testing one-off products, like here and there, like I use the same pixel. Like I have one general store with like a partner, and like we just use the same pixel for multiple different products, and it works perfectly fine. But there are apps though in the Shopify. You can get like a multi-pixel app and you could have multiple different pixels and attach them for each product or collection or whatever. So, but if you have, I would recommend it for collections. Like if you have a store with like collection pages, like a clothing store, and you want to have specifically a pixel just for one collection, I would recommend that maybe. But if you're just doing products, like it doesn't really matter.
Yo, I got a good question. Okay, so I got like actually three small questions. So when you said you switch up the branding after you do it from a general store, do you switch up the domain name and also like the logos and all that as well?
Yeah, so if you have a product just like crushing it, like it's scaling, it's definitely beneficial to switch over to a branding because now you have like a longer term thing that you can sell and stuff. So for example, if I'm selling like lip gloss, right, and I have like some sort of lip gloss product, I have no custom anything on it. and it's on a general store and it starts scaling, then yeah, you can just switch you can just get a new domain, a new logo, and like just literally just rebrand it all around that one product. And in the long term, it's really, really good. If you have a mediocre product, and it's not like, I wouldn't brand anything unless you're able to do probably at least 15-20,000 a month on it. And then you could start slowly scale it up from there into like a brand. But anything less than that, like if you're struggling to scale a product and you're like, oh, should I brand this to make it pop? It just wouldn't be worth it if the product's already struggling. So just make sure that like anytime you go into branding, you have really solid numbers, good profit margins, seeing week over week scales. Then it's like, okay, I can, like, once you brand it, then it can take off. So yeah, new domain, new logo. I mean, it's nothing crazy, guys. Like new domain and logo. That's like pretty much it, honestly. Colorways in the website, you can change it up. Other than that, it's like it doesn't take too much to rebrand.
Okay, that makes sense. My other question was, when you say you look at the Calendar and you take the product, put it on the Meta, and do you like rip the Calendar ads and then put it onto Meta to see if it validates? Is that how
Yeah,
it works?
yeah, literally just to validate the products and Cali data, just download the videos on the products, like just to validate it. Once you get up to like, once you get the scale, like a couple thousand a day, it's like $5,000 a day, then it's like you have enough money to go get the product yourself, send it out to custom people, make your own creatives as well. You can start making like static images, ads as well. But yeah, just to validate, like I think it's perfectly fine just to rip the creatives on there, throw them on the Meta, validate the product, and then you can go into like getting your own custom stuff.
Okay. And my last question was, this is kind of like a personal question that applies to me, but like I actually had a Facebook ad account ban recently, and then like I kept on making new accounts, and when I linked my credit card to that new ad account, that also got disabled. So are there any solutions to like my problem that I have here, or is it just like cooked?
Yeah. Don't use the same credit card that got banned in one ad account and then put it onto another one. That's like one way. I mean, I have connections for people that it gets, the Facebook ecosystem gets really, really complicated, especially once you get banned once. Like pretty much everyone I know has had their personal Facebooks completely like blacklisted. So we have to use other methods. Like sometimes you just use my sister's my sister's profile, and then I'll just like use that ad account and then be okay on that. But don't use the same card. Also, like they track your IP. So like sometimes even if you travel to a different country, like they'll put a restriction in your account and then you have to appeal it. But I would say like just best practices, obviously, to not get banned on Facebook is just follow the rules. I know people get banned all the time for no apparent reason. It happens to everyone. Usually they're okay. Usually most of the time you can just appeal it. But if you try to circumvent that, this is their policy of circumventing, it's a really big thing for them. Like it's basically you just skirting around their policies and trying to get a new ad account. If they find out you're doing that, then it can cause a lot of issues. And then, you know, some of my friends are like completely banned and it's like they just have terrible luck with it. Then you have to go into like proxy setups. So like there's companies like adrevival.io that offer like full proxy setups with ad accounts. They'll give you an ad account, they'll give you a special browser like Go Login or Multi Login, and they'll get you like a proxy for the IP of that person's profile. And then you can just log in and use that without any issues. But sometimes it gets really messy, especially if you get banned once. I would just honestly try to just ask your friends around or family members around to use their profiles, and then just don't use the same card. And then that's usually a solution, pretty easy solution for people in your position.
When you say don't use the same card, right? I have like an Amex card, and like that's kind of like the one card that I have to use. And then like so I asked someone on Insta and they told me like one way you could get around that is getting a PayPal account linked up to your Facebook ad account and then putting the credit card linked to that PayPal account. Do you think that would work or no?
Yeah, you can do that as well. And this is the only situation where I would use PayPal because you're not processing with them. You're just using them as an intermediary between your credit card and Meta. So it's like fine. It's not like they're gonna cause you issues or hold money or anything. So that's like one solution. Or you can just tell AMX, hey, I lost my card, give me a new card. They'll give you a new card with a new number, and it's really unrecognizable to Facebook. That's like another solution.
Oh, okay. Thank you, bro. Thank you. That actually helps a lot.
Yeah, I got you.
Awesome. Great question, Hassan. We'll answer one more question and then we're gonna hop off for today. So we're gonna move back to creatives. Joe Corbett had a question on framework. What's the most successful ones you've seen on Instagram? So we talked about Facebook. What are you seeing on Instagram? And what's your framework?
Yeah. So I mean, honestly, Like whenever you launch an ad on Meta, it goes to Instagram, right? Because Meta and Instagram are the same company. And this is another interesting aspect of like running ads, is that there's like a completely different audience on Facebook versus on Instagram. So, you usually probably have moving toward a younger demographic on Instagram, and mainly probably an older demographic on Facebook. But even for me, when I'm doing like your framework question, like I will scroll Meta, and like honestly, my timeline, especially on like my TikTok and like some of my social media feeds, they're kind of trained to show me D2C ads for like the products that I'm selling. So for example, like in health and wellness, like I get spammed with health and wellness ads all the time, and I'll save them and take screenshots and then use them as templates in my own company. So there really isn't like a successful framework. It's just literally taking what's already working from other companies and just running with that. Because like the consumer base changes like literally seasonally. Some people, like one video that might have worked at the beginning of the year isn't going to scale during the summer. So again, it's just coming back to just like continually testing different angles. And honestly, that's just going to be your most successful framework, is just testing as many different angles as possible. And as you test more, you'll obviously see what works better, and you make iterations off that. You obviously want to make iterations off your best winning ads, and you make iterations off those. You continue making winning ads. Even on TikTok, for example, like I'll train my timeline to show me like winning ads and winning products. Same thing for Meta and Instagram. I'll train my timeline, and this is how you train it, by the way. Like if you see an ad, just click on shop now, literally add the cart and go to the checkout, and the pixel tracks you, and then you'll get blasted with more ads. And it's just like, it's an easy way to see like winning ads from like big companies. Also, guys, if you ever use the Meta ads library, it's super helpful. You can literally look up any company you want and see the ads are running for free. So that's just like another thing you could do to get creative inspiration.
That's awesome. Thanks, Kai. We'll move over to pixel data. So switching from a general shop to a branded winning product after the mitigation, do you need to use a new pixel, or is there a way to use the previous one?
There's a big misconception about the pixel, and this is like the same question I've seen like even in 2018. The pixel keeps all the data, and it's kind of just like you're raising a kid, and you're making it learn all these things that it keeps for life. So you train it how to play piano and violin. It's going to know exactly how to do that even 10 years down the road, like, right? So it's going to keep all the same exact data. So there's no reason to get a new pixel unless you're blatantly seeing an issue with like performance. Then it's like, that's an option that you can do to see if it works. Sometimes switching out the pixel like does help it to revive it sometimes, but like even then, I never really switch out pixels that much, like especially if you're going from general to branded. It's going to keep all the same data regardless. Like it'll have all the data from like the 20 different products that you had, sure, but it'll still have the same data from your winning product too. So you don't really need to like spend the time and energy of switching out pixels unless you blatantly see like a drop off in like your performance, I would say.
Perfect. Well, that's our time for today's call. Thank you, Kai. Thank you, guys.
Great having you.
Bye.
Bye.